Hey guys, so today's lesson is on adding and subtracting rational numbers. This lesson, we're starting on lesson 9 today. However, we're starting on it inside the lab. So make sure you do all of these problems. Do not fast forward through this PowerPoint. Take your time and spend the whole time going through each slide. So here are the steps to add and subtract rational numbers. We're going to go through these steps for all of the slides. So the first step is to rewrite the problem. And it just says if necessary. The only time you rewrite the problem is if you see two signs next to each other. In this problem, I don't see two signs next to each other. I just see a positive over here and a negative over here. So I don't need to do step 1. Step 2 says to convert each number in the problem to decimals or fractions with common denominators. Because everything's already a fraction, I'm just going to keep them as a fraction. So here's what I showed you guys in class. Find a common denominator. If you struggle with finding a common denominator, go and circle the denominators that you have and skip count by both of those numbers. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28, 32, 36, 40, 5, 10, 15, 20. And think about what number did I say in both of those? I realized that I said 20 in both those. So I'm going to make my new denominator be 20. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to rewrite the problem, but with the denominator of 20. Leave out your numerators. So now I have to figure out what my numerator is going to be. I know if my denominator was 5, what did I have to do to that 5 to get to 20? Multiply by 4. So if I have to multiply that 5 by 4, I also have to multiply to get 20. I have to multiply my numerator by 4 as well to get 8. If I had to multiply my denominator by 5 to get 20, I have to multiply this by 5 as well, and then I get 5 20ths. If I have to multiply my denominator by 4 to get 20, I have to multiply my numerator by 4 as well. That gives me 12. Now I have a common denominator. Now it'll be easier to solve. So what I'm going to do, and you could really solve it in any order. I'm going to go ahead and solve it from left to right. So I have negative 2 and 8 20ths plus 3 and 5 20ths. I'm going to go ahead and solve that. So I know if you look at step 3, it says same signs add, different subtract. So these have different signs, so I'm going to subtract. Also, I know my answer is going to be positive. So I'm going to put 3 and 5 20ths minus 2 and 8 20ths. So obviously, I know I cannot take away 8 20ths if I only have 5 20ths. So I need to regroup. So that's going to turn into a 2. That's going to turn to 1 and 5 20ths. And if I turn that into an improper fraction, that's going to be, now I'm going to have to multiply 1 times 20 plus 5. Sorry, this is 20. That'll be 25 over 20. Now I have 25 over 20 minus 8 20ths. I know 25 minus 8 is going to give me 17 20ths. And I know 2 minus 2 is going to give me 0. So right now I have 17 20ths. However, I'm not done. Because this equals 17 20ths. Because what I did was 3 and 5 20ths minus 2 and 8 20ths. And I know that they had different signs, so I subtracted, and I know my answer is going to be positive. So I got positive 17 20ths. Now I'm going to subtract 12 20ths. I know my denominator is obviously going to be 20. That's not going to change. My numerator is going to be 5. 5 20ths is also equal to, and I'm going to write it way up here where I have space, 1/4. So I know my answer is 1/4. For this next problem, it looks like an onion. So I know whenever I have these quote-unquote onions, I have to solve them from the inside out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite this problem. So I have 5 and 2/9 plus negative 3 and 9/10. Now I see two signs. Those two signs are going to turn into 1 minus 5 and 2/9. And if I rewrite it again, I have 5 and 2/9 minus 3 9/10 minus 5 2/9. One thing that you should realize here is that you have a positive 5 2/9 and a negative 5 2/9. Those are going to cancel each other out. Imagine if you have 5 and negative 5. Those are additive inverses. So if you add a negative number, if you add the opposite of a number, you know that's going to give you 0. So these are to cancel each other out. Now I'm left with negative 3/9. This problem was easy. My answer is negative 3/9. So again, for this problem, I'm going to start by rewriting the problem. And it is necessary because I see a negative sign outside the parentheses. Whenever you see a negative sign outside the parentheses, apply it to everything inside. So here's what I'm going to do. Rewrite it. 2 4/9. So technically that's going to be negative 2 4/9 and minus a negative 10. Okay? So if I have a negative positive 2/9, I know that's the same thing as minus 2 4/9. However, if I have minus a negative 10, that's the same thing as saying, because you remember, two negatives are going to equal a positive. So you know that if I have minus a negative, that's going to equal plus 10. So now, again, like I saw in my last problem, look, I see additive inverses. Positive 2 4/9 minus 2 4/9. I know that's going to cancel each other out. That's going to equal 0. If I have 2 4/9 minus 2 4/9, that's going to equal 0. That leaves me with 10. Now I have my answer. My answer equals 10. All right, so in this problem, for adding and subtracting rational numbers, I know that I am going to have to rewrite. Whenever I see parentheses, I like to rewrite because it just looks too confusing with parentheses. So I know this positive sign is going to be applied to anything inside the parentheses. So when I write it, it's 5 plus negative 4 4/7. And again, like we learned, if you have a positive and negative, that's going to turn into a negative. So that's going to turn into minus 4 4/7. So there's multiple ways to solve this. You can solve it by doing it 5 minus 4 minus 4/7. Or you can go ahead and subtract like how we were doing earlier. 5 minus 4 4/7. I know you were grouped just like regular subtraction. You turn that 5 into a 4, you bring that 1 over here. Another way to write 1 is 7/7. Now you get 7/7 minus 4/7, you get 3/7. 4 minus 4 gives you 0. So our answer is 3/7. So my first step will be to rewrite the problem. Like I said, I don't like when I see parentheses, it looks too confusing. So I'm going to rewrite the problem. I have negative 13 5/10 minus negative. What do? Look at step 1 to see what you do if you have minus and negative. Look at the orange and green. What sign should I put there? A plus sign. Plus 19 6/10 plus 13 5/10. It looks a lot better without the parentheses. You should look at the problem carefully first before you just start going through random steps. One thing that you should notice is that you have additive inverses again. This is the third problem with an additive inverse. So you know that cancels each other out. If I have positive 13 5/10 and negative 13 5/10, that's going to equal 0. I'm literally subtracting the same exact number. So now that leaves me with 19 6/10. That's your answer. 19 6/10. Okay, so I have 32 plus negative 12 7/8. Again, I need to do step 1. I need to rewrite that problem. Whenever you see two signs, that should tell you need to rewrite that problem. 32 minus 12 7/8. So I like to subtract. I don't really like to subtract horizontally. I prefer to subtract vertically. So I'm going to rewrite this problem vertically. 32 minus 12 and 7/8. Again, it's like a regular subtraction problem. All right, you know you can't take away 7/8 if you only have 0. So you have to regroup. So you can cross that 2 out. That 2 will now turn into a 1. And you can bring that 1 over here. So now you have 31 and 1 minus 12 and 7/8. What's another way to write 1? Another way to write 1 is where it has the same denominator as that number, because you can only subtract if it has the same denominator. Turn that 1 into 8/8, because that equals 1. And that also has the same denominator, so you can easily subtract. Now I have 8/8 minus 7/8 gives you 1/8. Now, if you have 31 minus 12, again, like regular subtraction, if you have 1, you can't take away 2, so regroup. That turns into 2, that turns into 11. Now you have 11 minus 2 gives you 9. You have 2 minus 1, which really technically 20 minus 1, gives you 1. So now you have 19 and 1/8. For this problem, I'm going to do the first step. Remember, always take these problems in steps, or they will become overwhelming. Look at the steps. Rewrite the problem if necessary. I see 2 signs, so I need to rewrite it, so it looks less confusing. 3 and 1/6 plus, I'm going to turn this into a fraction, so I'm going to work with fractions. So the way to say it is 20 and 3/10. So you just write it like how you say it, 20 and 3/10. That's why it's important to know how to say it. I see 2 negative signs, so let's get turned to a positive sign. Plus 5 and 5/6. Again, you can't add unless they all have the same denominator. So if I skip count by 10, I skip count by 6, I know I'll hit 6, 12, 18, 24, 30. Ooh, I hit 30. You'll also hit 60, but let's use 30. So I'm going to rewrite the problem, omit the numerators, and just write 30 as your new denominator. 20 and blank over 30. Plus 5 and blank over 30. Now we're going to figure out the numerators. What did you have to do to 6 to get it to 30? Multiply by 5. So you're going to have to multiply that numerator by 5 too. So you know your numerator is going to be 5. What did you have to do to 10 to get it to 30? Multiply by 3. So you're going to have to multiply that numerator by 3 too. That gives you 9. What did you have to do to 6 to get it to 30? You multiply that by 5. So you're going to multiply that numerator by 5 too, which gives you 25 over 30. So now our new problem is 3 and 5/30 plus 20 and 9/30 plus 5 and 25/30. Now, this is a full addition problem, so I'm just going to go ahead and add. So I have 3 and 5/30 plus 20 and 9/30. All right, so I add those together. I get 23. And 9 plus 5 gives me 14 over 30. All right, and then if I go ahead and add that last problem, 5 and 25/30, I get 23 plus 5 is going to give me 28. And then if I add 14 plus 25, that's going to give me 39. I know this right here is an improper fraction. So I'm going to turn that into a mixed number. In order to turn it into a mixed number, you have to divide and write your remainder as a fraction. 30 equals 39 one time, multiply 30, subtract 9. So it gives you 9/30. So now I have this equals 1 and 9/30. So I'm going to bring that 1 and add it to the 28. So that's going to give me 29 and 9/30. However, I know that can still be simplified. I know 9/30 can be simplified. So my final answer will be 29. And what number can go into both 9 and 30? 3 can go into both. 3 can go into 9 3 times. 3 can go into 30 10 times. So my final answer will be 29 and 3/10. This may need to be a problem that you may need to do again. I know that was a lot of work, but if you go through the steps, everything will be easy. So for this problem, we have 16 over 18 minus negative 1 and 8/10 minus 4/5. So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite the problem. I'm going to turn everything to fractions as well. So I have 16 over 18. Look, minus negative. If you look at step 1, you know if you have minus a negative, that's turned to a positive. Plus 1 and 8/10. So instead of writing 1.8, I'm going to go ahead and write 1 and 8/10. Minus 4/5. So I have 16 over 18 plus 1 and 8/10 minus 4/5. So what I'm going to do first is make sure everything has the same denominator. So one common denominator that I know everything has would be 180. All these numbers can go into 180. So I'm going to make 180 be my new denominator. All right, so I had to multiply 18 by 10 to get me to 180. I had to multiply 10 by 18 to get me to 180. So I know 18 times 8 will give me 144. And I multiply 5 by 36 to give me 180. So 36 times 4 gives me 144 as well. Again, look, I have, sorry, I forgot that one. So now I have 160 over 180 plus 1 and 144 over 180 minus 144 over 180. If you notice something, you can notice that these two can cancel each other out. So this is the same thing. 1 and 144 over 180 is the same thing as 1 plus 144 over 80. So if you look, you can cancel these out again. Now you're left with 1 and 160 over 180. You know that's also equal to, and we don't have enough space, so we're going to move our way up. You know that's also equal to 1 and 16 over 18. You know that's also equal to 1 and 8/9. So we're going to begin by going through the steps. Step 1 says to rewrite the problem if necessary. I see 2 signs over here, so I know I'm going to need to rewrite it. And I also see that I see decimals and fractions is all over the place. So I need to rewrite the ones that are decimals as fractions. So I have negative 24. I see 2 negatives, so I know that's going to turn into a positive, plus 1/2. And once you turn into a positive, you don't need the parentheses. The whole point of the parentheses is to separate the negative sign from the minus sign. So now that turns to plus 1/2 minus 12, and you literally write it like how you say it, 5/10. So again, I'm going to try to find common denominators for 1/2. I know a number with a common denominator is 5/10. That's going to equal 1/2 minus 12 and 5/10. So again, minus 12 and 5/10 is the same thing as minus 12 and minus 5/10 if you want to break it apart. The reason why I'm breaking it apart is because it's just so much easier. Now look what you can see when you do that. I have positive 5/10 and I have negative 5/10. And what happens when you have a positive and a negative of the same number? You know they cancel out. So now I'm left with negative 24 minus 12. Remember what we learned earlier. Same signs add, different signs subtract. These have the same sign, so you're going to add. That's going to give you 36. And is your answer going to be positive or negative? You're going to use absolute value. That's going to tell you that your answer is negative. Our answer is negative 36. So I'm going to do this problem a little differently. I've been solving all my problems as fractions. I'm going to solve this one as a decimal. You can choose to solve it as a fraction if you like. So I have 3 plus negative 2/10 minus 15 1/4. So I know if I rewrite it, I see 2 signs, so I'm going to go ahead and rewrite it. 3, that's going to turn into minus 2/10 minus 15 1/4. However, I'm not going to write 1/4 as a fraction. I'm going to write it as a decimal. Think about quarters, or if you don't know how to do it, you can divide and write your remainder as a fraction. So that's the same thing as 25 hundredths. So now I'm going to just solve with it as a decimal. If I have 3 minus 2/10, I have to solve that first, and I can come back and solve this part. 3 minus, the only thing with this is that you have to line everything up. 2/10, there's a 0 in the ones place, a 2 in the tenths place. You have to line it up. That's where kids struggle the most. I know I can't take away 2 if I only have 0/10, so I need to regroup. That leaves me with 2 8/10. Now, if I rewrite this problem, this equals 2 8/10. And now I'm going to finish the problem. Minus 15 25 hundredths. Okay? So remember what we did before. Same signs add, different signs subtract. I have a positive 2 8/10 and a negative 15 25 hundredths. So I know they have different signs subtract. I know my answer is ultimately going to be negative. So what I'm going to do is put the bigger number on top, the number of the bigger absolute value, which is 15 25 hundredths, minus, make sure you line everything up, 2 8/10. 5 minus 0 gives you 5. Really, that's 5 hundredths minus 0 hundredths. All right, I have to regroup. 12 tenths minus 8 tenths gives you 4 tenths. 4 minus 2 gives you 2. And 10 minus nothing gives you 10. And I know my answer if I use step 4, I know my absolute value. Because of absolute value, my absolute value of 15 25 hundredths is going to be bigger than my absolute value of 2 8/10. So I know my answer is going to be negative. So my answer is negative 12 45 hundredths. If I wanted to write that as a fraction, I can write negative 12 45 hundredths. And then obviously you need to know, if you write as a fraction, you need to simplify. So negative 12, if I think of what number can go into both 45 and 100, I know 5 can go into both. 5 can go into 45 9 times. And 5 can go into 100 20 times. So my answer is 12 and 9, negative 12 and 9 20ths. So this problem is a little easier if you know how to regroup with fractions, and I'm just going to keep this one as a fraction when I solve it. So of course I'm going to need to rewrite it because I see 2 signs. So I'm going to rewrite this problem. 80, this turns into minus 22 4/15 equals. Now I'm just going to subtract vertically. 80 minus, the biggest thing with subtracting vertically is to make sure everything is lined up. If you don't line up everything, it will mess up your answer. All right, so again, we need to regroup. Obviously, I can't take anything from the ones place, so just like regular subtraction, that will turn into a 7, that will turn into a 10. Now you'll need to regroup again, just like regular subtraction. 1 is also equivalent to 15 over 15. So now I have 15 over 15 minus 4/15. 15 minus 15 is going to give me 11, and I know my denominator is going to be 15. So I know 15 over 15 minus 4/15 gives me 11 over 15. Now I have 9 minus 2, that's going to give me 7. 7 minus 2, that's going to give me 5. And I know my answer is going to be positive because if I look at the absolute value, it's going to be bigger. So I know my answer is 57 and 11 over 15. All right, so for this one, I'm going to go through the steps again. Step 1, rewrite the problem. 10 minus 3 and 3/8 equals. So again, I like to subtract vertically. 10 minus, make sure everything is lined up. That's really 3 1s, 3 8s. All right, so again, like last time, there's nothing in the ones place. Well, you have no fraction here to subtract, so you have to regroup. There's nothing in the ones place. So you have to come here. That'll turn to a 0, that'll turn to a 10. Now this will turn into a 9, and you'll bring that one over here. That one is the same thing as 8 8s. So now I have 8 8s minus 3 8s going to give you 5 8s. Now I have 9 minus 3, that's going to give you 6. So now I know my answer is 6 and 5/8. So for this one, I have 1/5 plus 20 and 3/10 minus negative 5 and 3/5. I think I'm going to keep everything. If you want, you could turn everything into a decimal. If you don't remember how to turn everything into a decimal, just divide 1 divided by 5, and then you'll get your decimal. You'll get 0.2 or 2/10. All right, so what we're going to do is I'm just going to keep everything as a fraction. So first I'm going to rewrite because I see multiple signs. So that gives me 1/5 plus 20 and 3/10 plus 5 and 3/5. Now I'm going to get them the same denominator. I want them all to have the denominator of 10. So what I'm going to do is I have to multiply 5 by 2 to get it to 10. Then if I multiply 5 by 2, I have to also multiply my numerator by 2, which will give me 2. So I know 1/5 is equivalent to 2/10. Plus 20, I don't need to do anything to this one, because it already has a denominator of 10. But I need to do the same for this one. If I have to multiply 5 by 2 to get it to 10, I also have to multiply the numerator 3 by 2, and then that will give me 6. So my new problem is 2/10 plus 20 and 3/10 plus 5 and 6/10. So if I'm going to start off by adding these two. 2/10 plus 20 and 3/10. That's going to give me 20. If I have 3/10 plus 2/10 is give me 5/10. So now I have the answer to this part. That gives me 20 and 5/10. But I can't forget to add this number. So I'm going to add 5 and 6/10. So like regular addition, 20 plus 5 is going to give you 25. And then if you have 5/10 plus 6/10, that's going to give you 11/10. However, this is so weird because now we have a mixed number in an improper fraction within a mixed number. We can't have that. So we're going to need to divide 11 divided by 10. So we can turn this into a mixed number. 10 can go into 11 one time, multiply 10, subtract 1, bring it on down, bring it on back. So that equals 1 and 1/10, right? So now I have 25. I'm going to add that whole number to 25. So that's going to give me 26. If I add this plus this, it's going to be 26. And now I have 1/10 left over. So my answer is 26 and 1/10. So again, we had this improper fraction, so we turned it into a mixed number, turn that into 1 and 1/10. And then we just combined 25 with 1, which gave us 26 and 1/10. So for this problem, I'm also going to turn it into a fraction with common denominators. So first I need to rewrite because I see two signs. So I see 11/12 plus 10 minus 5/6 equals. I know my common denominator would be 12, so I'm just going to go ahead and do it up here this time. In order to get to 12, I have to multiply 6 by 2. So I have to multiply 5 by 2. So that's going to give me 10 over 12. So now I'm going to cross out this fraction now that I found the equivalent fraction. So now I have 11 twelfths plus 10 minus 10 twelfths. So if I look, I have 11 twelfths minus 10 twelfths. I know that's going to give me 1 12. So far I have 10 and 1 12. You know what? That's my answer. So I have 1 plus negative 3/4 plus negative 12 1/4. Right now it looks really confusing, so I'm going to go ahead and rewrite my problem. 1, I see plus negative. What is that going to turn into? Minus 3/4. I see plus a negative. That's going to turn into 1 sign. Minus 12 and 1/4. I already have a common denominator, so I don't have to do much. So if I have, I'm going to go ahead and start with this and omit the 1. So if I have negative 12 and 1/4 minus 3/4, I can go ahead and say, well, I have the same sign, so I'm going to add negative 12 and 1/4 plus, and if you want to do it this way, we should just do it this way. Now just get rid of the signs and just add plus 3/4. That's going to give you, I know 1/4 plus 3/4, that's going to give me 1. That's going to give me 4/4, which equals 1. And now I have 12. So that's going to give me 13. But is it going to be a positive or negative? Negative 13. So now I have negative 13, and I cannot forget about this 1. And I know that's a positive 1. If I have negative 13 plus 1, you're adding like you added regular integers earlier this year. Negative 13, so different signs subtract. 13 minus 1 is going to give you 12. And you know it's going to be a negative 12. Because you know there's different signs. When there's different signs, you subtract. 13 minus 1 gives you 12. And you use absolute value to tell whether your answer is going to be positive or negative. So now I know my answer is negative 12. And there's so many different ways to solve this. If you don't want to solve it the way I did it, that's fine. Solve it your own way. That's one beautiful thing about math. You can solve problems hundreds of different ways and still get the same answer.